Beyond Reason is brought to you by Doc's Streetside Grill.
You know what's beyond reason? Hillary Clinton is not in jail. Just saying. That's a little beyond reason to me. Hillary Clinton is not in jail. Seems like she broke the law. General Petraeus did something very similar, and they didn't put him in jail, but they treated him harshly. How much you want to bet that Hillary Clinton doesn't get in any trouble? Just saying. I don't know. They're saying, oh, it could ruin her campaign, blah, blah, blah. It's not going to. Oh, wishful thinking. She'll probably be the nominee. Although, you'll never guess who the Democrats are trying to get to run for president, pushing out there. I predicted this, by the way, of course. Al Gore. They want Al Gore to run. They want to bring out, I could actually see that happening. He won the popular vote in 2000. He lost the electoral vote, but he could, Mr. Global Warming, could be running for president. I mean, anything's possible, I guess. We have an avowed socialist running on the Democrat side. We have Donald Trump running on the Republican side. I mean, anything's possible. By the way, you are listening to Beyond Reason Radio, News Radio 102.5 WFLA, and BeyondReasonRadio.com. And big news, you can now catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on your iHeartRadio app. If you go on your iHeartRadio app, you can download that at the Apple App Store or the Android App Store. Download the iHeartRadio app. Just search Beyond Reason Radio, and you can find my podcast right there. So after this show's done, after I podcast it, the podcast is right there. There's no excuse not to listen whenever. So there you go. By the way, this hour is brought to you by Doc's Streetside Grill. Doc's Streetside Grill on West Orange Avenue, right across from ORMC. Your prescription for good times. Okay, so I pushed this a lot on Twitter. I promoted this a lot, so we're going to get to it first, because some of it really is beyond reason. What some of the radical feminists are doing now, I couldn't believe. Now, a friend of the show, Liberty Girl, she was on the show before. You can follow her on Twitter at LibertyGirl1791. She wrote something for the DC Gazette online. And it was a list. Well, it was titled Top 5 Outrageous Feminist Campaigns. And she's like, she just passed it along to me. Oh, you might want to talk about this. I'm like, okay. And I look at it and I'm like, well, the show is called Beyond Reason Radio. We try to be the voice of reason through everything in the world that is beyond reason. And if there is anything that is beyond reason, it is this list. So, by the way, I'm joined by executive producer Mr. Michael Formisano on Friday. How's it going, man?
Good evening, Mike. How's it going with you?
That's good.
Yeah.
Except what we're about to read.
Oh yeah, this is fun. This is gonna be a good one.
Fun is definitely a word for it. Fun is definitely a word. So I gave Mr. Michael Formisano the list, and
right here.
He's got it there, and we're going to start from number 5. This is outrageous feminist campaigns.
And these are the top 5? Is that what this is?
Yes, top 5 outrageous feminist campaigns. I call them the radical feminists, because what they are proposing in this, and by the way, it's radio, so you can't see the pictures, unfortunately. I could describe some of the pictures that are on the
website.
I don't know if
you would want to describe some of those pictures.
I don't think I do. I don't know. I'm just okay, Mr. Michael. What is number 5?
Number 5: independent women and true equality.
Okay, go on.
All right. So
that one doesn't sound too bad.
All right. So let's just read right from the sheet here. Okay. Let's face facts. For a group who promotes independency and equality, they are the first to expect to be given free things because they are women. Women don't need modern-day feminism because we are strong. Women, not me. Because we are
good.
strong, smart,
Glad you're
and
not.
can think for ourselves.
Yeah, Michael has not changed his name to Michelle and is not becoming a Caitlin.
No, I'm going to avoid that. Because we are strong, smart, and can think for ourselves. As soon as you have to be told when to be offended by someone else, you lose everything you claim to have stood for.
Now, that's actually an excellent point. It seems like the radical feminists, they just are waiting to be offended, and they want something free from the government, even though we live in probably the most fair, equal society in the history of the planet when it comes to the rights of men and women. But it's still not good enough. By the way, this is written by a woman. It's written by Liberty Girl. So, very, very interesting take. By the way, I think it's funny, too, when you talk about getting offended, how much they're offended about things in this country, but you never hear them speak out maybe what's going on in Iran. You know how women in Iran or Saudi Arabia don't have the right to drive? Oh, but they love Obama. They love it when he does deals with Iran, even though they'll never speak out about the real abuses against women that happen in the world in other countries. It doesn't happen here. It happens in other countries. So, okay, I interrupted you, Mike. What is number 4?
Number 4. This one is...
By the way, this list gets...
Number 4
crazy.
is the one that caught my eye first. Okay?
Okay.
Number 4, rape culture.
Okay. Sounds bad.
Does it?
What does that mean?
Rape culture. All right, here's what it says. Yes, America. Every man is out to rape you.
Oh, okay.
In case you didn't know.
I didn't know that.
I missed the memo.
I didn't know that. I didn't. By the way, if you're a woman out there listening to the show, please give us a call. 407-674-1025, because obviously we're two guys, and I want to know a woman's take on this stuff. Maybe you think some of this stuff is valid.
Yeah, maybe you can enlighten us. Maybe we're not seeing something.
Now, I have a feeling.
Even though rape culture, I think that's pretty clear what they're going for.
I have a feeling, though, as we get further along in this list, a lot of women are not going to side with what's being said. Just a feeling.
It's just so
just
extreme.
A hint.
But
yeah, 407-674-1025. Okay, continue, Mike, on rape culture.
Okay. Men, in case you were unaware, you want nothing more in life than to rape women. This is what
wow, I didn't know that. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is what modern-day feminists tell women today. Instead of teaching women empowerment, they train people to be victims. This propaganda is exclaiming that getting rape is taught as being bad, but society is telling people that being the rapist is okay. Get real. Feminists would rather have a woman pee on themselves, hoping the smell will... Oh, yeah, I've actually heard this. Telling women to pee on themselves, hoping that the smell will gross out the attacker. Believe it or not, that is taught in colleges. I've seen this before.
I mean, I guess it would work.
I believe they call it the five Ds.
The 5
I'm going to look that up, and I'll get back to you on that. But I believe this is taught in college.
Now, there was a time in the world, it's in many places in the world, it's still like this in this country, where it was much harder for a woman who was raped to be able to speak about it, to be able to
do anything about it.
But today, it seems like I said, we're going to the extreme where, we had the Duke lacrosse thing a few years ago where the woman was accused, the Duke lacrosse team, of being raped, and turned out to be false, turned out not to be true, and this is where we are.
There's always special cases, of course, but in modern day, it's so much easier to do something about it.
But I think I can say without a doubt that most men are not wanting to rape you.
I don't.
Yeah, I think I can say without a doubt that is not the goal of most men in the country. You
Who
should
wants
not
to be a rape. That is a hallway we need to stay away from. We do not go down that corridor.
I'm just going to go on a limb here and say, okay, what's next on the list?
Well, that wasn't it for 4. just mostly, it's basically the same thing. It goes on about saying thousands of women are raped in America every year, but making them victims rather than overcomers is everything opposite than what feminism
It does
used to
seem
mean,
like that's where the
is-
feminist movement is going.
Which is a good point.
They're trying to make women more victims. You think the whole point of feminism would be to empower them?
Exactly. That's what it used to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Doesn't seem like that's where it is anymore.
Okay. But moving on to number 3.
Yes.
Is armpit art.
Say that again.
Armpit art.
It doesn't sound good.
I saw the photos for this one. It's everything it sounds like.
It's all it is. Okay. And why is that?
Okay, so armpit art. Yes, because nothing says classy like a pit full of colored hair or unshaved legs.
Oh.
In all honesty, your unwillingness to shave is your own issue. But thinking that your bright colored hair is an expression of equality is pretty insulting to the original feminists who would protest in order for women to vote, own property, own a business, etc. Susan B. Anthony would be insulted to know she was arrested for attempting to vote so that women today can have their armpits match their favorite color.
Oh, that's so disgusting. I'm trying to figure out if these modern day radical feminists are either trying to be men or they are trying not to attract men.
Is that what it is? I'm trying to figure out who the first woman was to be like, that needs some fuchsia.
I don't know. They're just upset because men don't have to do that and women usually do, I guess. I
thought women were grossed out by armpit hair. At least that's
The
what I've
thing
learned
is-
in my day.
The thing is, most of them are, especially with other women. This is the point.
That's why
It's like these
so
radical
confusing.
feminists are trying to be men, or they're trying. I don't
I don't know
know.
if they're trying to be it's just like they're trying to do everything to become more noted. I don't
Yeah,
know.
it is a lot about attention.
It's a lot about
It seems like they're trying to do everything to repel men.
yeah.
You would. I'm going to go out on a limb here again. I'm going to say
Please.
most girls still want to find, a husband or a boyfriend. Still want to attract someone of the opposite sex. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that.
I mean, yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, I'm going to say most. I'm going
A
to
lot,
say
yeah.
majority want to attract a man. So
Women, I personally do not like armpit art. Don't do it. That's me.
it's not.
Pass it on.
It's not a winner for me either. Okay, go on to. This gets worse, by the way.
This one's the one. This is the one you like.
Yes, go on.
Yeah. So you ready? Sexist air conditioning. Did you know your AC was sexist?
No, I mean I didn't ask it.
Did you know you're part of the problem?
I
Are you comfortable right now?
am a.
If there was a woman in here, she might not be comfortable.
Oh, you're right.
Did you know that?
Yeah,
Must
It's
be
because-
sexist.
yeah. The sexist radio industry.
You know, I always knew about those Kenmore people. I knew there was something about them and their
those,
AC
those
units.
train manufacturers.
All right, let me read this one. Bless her heart. When did inanimate objects become the center focus of the feminist blame game? Are chairs sexist too because most women who are short cannot touch the ground? That's actually very
I
true.
didn't know that. How dare we make chairs too tall?
Right?
Unbelievable. I don't even know how women live in this society. Just awful. Oh no. Go on.
It says, no, that's almost as crazy as saying women need feminism to succeed in the word. In the word? Yeah, feminism to succeed in the word. Let's make a wild suggestion and say that if it's truly too cold for you, then wear more clothes. There's this thing, they call it a hoodie. It's pretty sexist to assume all women freeze in an office, to be quite honest.
That's true.
However,
Uh-oh.
I'm not agreeing with this, but women are always cold.
Yeah, I don't think it would matter. It could be 98 degrees in the place and they would still be cold. But I don't know if all the bosses are like, well, you're a woman, so
Yeah.
I'm going to turn it extra cold.
76 degrees. I hope you suffer, women.
By the way, we have some audio that we got from Sky News. We have some audio that we got from Sky News where there's two women anchors. Sky News is the Australian news outlet owned by Rupert Murdoch. Two anchors talking about this, and their exchange is pretty interesting. Let's hear some of that.
There it was. There I was thinking it was just me that had a problem, but it turns out it's the air conditioning that's sexist.
I know. So many women in our office have the exact same problem. We just sit there absolutely freezing at our desks trying to type. You can probably tell I've got a cold right now, which I blame all on the AC. And so it's just so actually quite nice to see this research. It's just such a relief to know that there's actually proof that this is happening, that women, do feel the cold more than men, and that the AC in offices is normally regulated more for a male's temperature than a woman's.
And it's an explanation for these constant battles you'll see in offices right across the country between the sexes for control of that office thermostat.
It's a war out there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, one of the biggest problems is that often in offices, it is men who control temperatures. That's just something I've found anecdotally.
In what office?
And because majority of the men in offices seem to be absolutely fine with the temperatures, women kind of just sit there on the corner feeling absolutely frozen. And, often, actually nothing's being done to help them. And, it might sound like a bit of a silly, light-hearted issue, but actually it's really uncomfortable being freezing at your desk every day. Take it from me.
I just love the imagery they put, too, where they're like, she's in the corner shivering. It's like the evil men of the offices are like, get in the corner and shiver.
Don't step near this thermostat.
How dare you? Oh, are you cold?
If you take one more step, 69 degrees.
Are you cold? I don't care. That's just, I've never seen this in my, actually, I've had a few women bosses, and, they were always cold, but it's just part of being a woman. Okay, but we're going to take a break, and then after the break, we're going to get to the number one thing, which is more beyond reason than anything we've read. You're not going to you're not going to believe it. 407-674-1025. You are listening to Beyond Reason Radio with your host Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason, the voice of the millennial generation, here at News Radio 1025 WFLA and BeyondReasonRadio.com.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. Now, back to Beyond Reason Radio.
Yes, there are plenty of places to download the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. Like that said, you can do it on iTunes. You can also now listen to it on your iHeart Radio app. Just search Beyond Reason Radio, and you can find the podcast there. So as soon as the show's over and you want to listen to the podcast, go to iHeartRadio and search Beyond Reason Radio. You can share it with your friends. Also, a bunch of other places you can get it, TuneIn Radio app, or just go to my website, BeyondReasonRadio.com. Before we get back to the number one top outrageous feminist movement here, feminist campaign, I just want to say Trump is everywhere. I've been watching Fox News a couple times. It's on in the studio. He was on the show before this. Now it's O'Reilly Factor. He's on that show. They're obsessed. I'm just very curious. I wonder how long this is going to last. I don't know. I was afraid to open the show with Trump today, not because I don't like Trump or anything like that. It was because I'm afraid if we push him so much and he's just everywhere that there might be burnout from him. And I have to talk about what's top of your mind. When I put together this show, I have to think about what the audience wants to hear, what the audience is thinking about. I have to give you the news, the important news, what's really going on, my opinion, but I don't want to seem out of touch. And if I'm just here talking Trump all the time, I'm afraid of burnout. I'm not going to lie.
It's almost like he's just trending right now.
Yeah,
eventually he'll fall.
It's like a fad. And maybe, I was talking to someone today, and he thinks Trump could go all the way to win the presidency. He told me, it was very interesting. He says, the thing about Trump is that people don't necessarily like him, but they trust him to get the job done. So it's not like they have this love for him as a person or anything like that, or his character, but they just trust that he's honest and he'll get the job done. So it was kind of an interesting take. I'm not so sure about it. I'm afraid sometimes what he could get done.
I feel like people just see him as a doer.
Yes.
Like if he says he's honestly going to do it, he's, that's how he kind of built his empire.
Which is one thing when you're running a business, but it doesn't necessarily always work when you're president. But we'll see. And if he goes against Hillary Clinton, maybe he could win because a lot of people do not trust Hillary Clinton right now. I'm not so sure. The polls are not saying that he could beat Hillary, that he has really high negatives against Hillary. One of the biggest reasons he's up so much is some of the stuff he's saying is good. He's tapped into a nerve of anger in this country. But one of the other reasons is there's a lot of candidates. He still only has like 20%. So you have 80% of Republicans who are not going to vote for him. So just put that a little bit in perspective.
Yeah, we'll just have to see how he fares once the hype starts to settle, if it ever settles.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he could win. I'm just saying I'm a little bit afraid. I've just noticed he's everywhere. And I don't want to be one of those people that just blast him over and over and over again to get ratings because, like anything else, any fad, people are going to get burned out by it. So, and then they're going to want to know real issues. They're going to want to know really what's going on. They're going to want to know really what the presidential candidates are going to do. And I'm probably going to talk about what he's going to do with healthcare sometime in this hour, what he said he was going to do. So we'll get to that. But right now, we have to get back because we teased you. The top 5 feminist campaigns, we went through 4.
That's right.
Number 1 might be the worst. And
might be the worst?
Okay, it definitely is the worst. And I'm going to say that most women are not going to agree with that. And another limb, I'm just going to go out on a limb and throw that out here. 407-674-1025, by the way, if you want to call in. All right, say this carefully too, Mike, without getting us to lose our license.
I would love to hear a woman's take on this topic.
Yes.
All right. Number 1. Free bleeding.
I think I know what that means.
If you're thinking you might know what it means, you probably know what it means.
By the way, there's a picture on the website.
There is
on the webpage. It's the worst. It's the worst.
I'm gonna recommend that you view it at your own risk.
Yeah, not something you show the kids.
Definitely not, or grandma.
Go ahead, Michael. What did? By the way, this was written by Liberty Girl, friend of the show. You can follow her on Twitter, Liberty Girl 1791.
Yes. Okay. So here it is. Number 1, free bleeding. Unfortunately, this is no joke. Modern-day feminists are advocating for a women's right to freely flow without man-made tampons that oppress
those evil
that oppress
tampons.
A women's natural cycle. See, I always thought that the women were on the whole.
I didn't know this was something brought on by men.
I'm being enlightened a lot here. Okay.
Go ahead. This might be the most disgusting segment of Beyond Reason Radio we've ever done. Yeah. But go ahead.
Strap yourself in. We warned you. It's okay to gag a bit because even Liberty Girl was unable to hold it down. A word to the wise. Free bleeding is repulsive. Every woman has their own monthly issues to manage, and yours is the last thing she wants to deal with. Not only is it very unsanitary for the people around you, it's just downright disgusting. And I could not
Thank you.
agree
I'm going to go out on a limb again, Mike. I'm going to go out on a limb and say
Talk to me.
that most women are going to agree that that's pretty disgusting.
I'm a man. I don't feel like I can relate to these issues, but at the same time, I know what blood is, and I know where it's coming from.
We all do know what blood is, yes.
And I know I do not want it.
I'm pretty sure that men did not have to talk women into using tampons or pads.
Any type of sanitary product.
I'm pretty sure it was not something that we had to push very hard for women to do. I think, just going to go on a limb, I think they were all for it. I think they were all for that. I'm just gonna gonna say.
Social media just went crazy over that one.
What did I got to hear some of the comments.
Oh, I got one here that just says ew.
That's what I said when Liberty Girl told me that, and I read it. I just went ew. That was my comment. Ew. It's the best.
What's that phone number again? Let's see if we can get some 407
674 1025, toll free 855 545 1025. 407-674-1025 if you have any comments on that. Okay, in the next segment, we're going to get into some more serious issues. Are we all celebrating because we made history today in Cuba? Are you all happy about it? We'll get to that. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio, News Radio 102.5 WFLA, BeyondReasonRadio.com.
Listen to the latest episodes of Beyond Reason. Download the podcast at Spreaker.com. Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. Or stream the show live by searching News Radio 102.5 WFLA.
That is right. If you have the iHeartRadio app, you can just search Beyond Reason Radio. You can find the podcast there. Just everywhere to find the podcast. I got some reaction on my social media, and Michael got some reaction on him. By the way, you can follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee, Yaffee. Follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee. I'm tweeting all the time. And you can also follow our producer, Michael Formasano, on Twitter at how do they get to you, Mike?
On Twitter at Radio Michael 7. At Radio Michael 7.
So you can follow us on Twitter. We the number one top outrageous feminist campaign got some reaction from people we knew. So yeah. So that was good. So enough of that. Probably the most disgusting segment we've ever done on Beyond Reason. Okay, by the way, you're listening to Beyond Reason Radio. If you didn't know already, this is your host, Michael Yaffee. I produce Bud Hedinger Live every weekday morning on this station from 6 to 9 a.m. So I am Yaffee, the producer. And this is the voice. We talk faith, culture, and politics, and apparently some disgusting stuff. And this is the voice of reason, the voice of the voice of the millennial generation that goes through everything in the news that's beyond reason. So, and by the way, I want to talk more about Beyond Reason. Y'all excited today? Our country made history. We'll see what people's reaction is to this. Some conservatives like this actually, but I didn't know if I'd ever see this in my lifetime. We raised the American flag at the U.S. Embassy in Cuba. So we reopened the embassy in Cuba, the U.S. Embassy. We have now opened relations with Cuba. So, and you know what we got in return for this? There's silence because I don't know. I don't think we got anything. We didn't get anything. There was nothing we got in return. By the way, Castro has some comments for America now that this has happened, but I was, going through the news, and Senator Marco Rubio, who's running for president, has been very vocal about this and why he's against it. His parents obviously escaped Cuba, so they're Cuban refugees, and he made some really good comments on basically what's going on in Cuba and why this is a disaster. Here is his comment.
You know who's not going to be there? All these people in Cuba that are fighting for freedom and democracy. Fighting meaning they take to the streets, they protest, they're rounded up, arrested, and beaten. None of them was invited to this event. And by the way, when they raised the Cuban flag in Washington, there were a bunch of people there from all over the country that are in favor of the Castro regime. They were shouting Viva Fidel. But when it comes to the U.S. flag raising in Havana, not a single dissident, not a single person who opposes the Castro government in Havana was invited to this. And what that shows you is what this is all about. This is a unilateral change. We are going to open up to Cuba, but Cuba's not going to open up to us, to their own people, or to the world. It's a one-sided deal, and that's why it's such a bad idea.
Exactly. Of course it's a one-sided deal. We didn't get anything for this. We have just decided to side with one of our enemies. And by the way, he makes a great point. There was no dissidents. There was no protests in Cuba when this was happening. Anyone against the Castro regime or anything, you know why? Because they're probably all in jail. You think they stopped rounding up political dissidents in Cuba? You think they stopped rounding up and persecuting Christians in Cuba? No. I completely doubt it. And he showed a great example of the difference between a free country where we had something like this in the U.S. and there's people there, different people on different sides protesting. It can get messy sometimes, but that's freedom. They're not allowed to have that in Cuba. Nothing's changed there. The only thing that's going to change if we lift the embargo completely is they'll get more money. And do you honestly think the Cuban people will get money? No, most of this is going to go to the regime. Most of this is going to go to the dictatorship. And now we've sided, once again, more with a dictatorship than our friends. Most Miami Cuban refugees are against this. But instead of siding with, the American people, we've sided with the dictators, just like what we're doing in Iran. At least in Iran, there was some kind of two-way deal, even though it's a disaster too. At least there was some semblance of a deal. There was no deal here. There was nothing they had to do. We just did it. Oh, because we're showing how good we are. Yeah, tell that to the political prisoners in Cuba. I've talked to people from Cuba, kids whose parents escaped camps, work camps in Cuba because of this, where they were starving in Cuba because of the socialist regime, the dictatorship there. Marco Rubio is right. And by the way, this isn't enough for Cuba. Fidel Castro, who turned 89. Oh, happy birthday, Castro. 89. How in the world are you still alive? Castro said, insisting that the United States, this isn't good enough. Opening up relations with Cuba is not good enough for Castro. No. He wants more. He's insisting that the United States owes Cuba many millions of dollars because of the half-century-old American trade embargo. Oh, so it's our fault. It's our fault that we didn't trade our stuff from our economy with you. Well, maybe we have all this stuff, Castro, because we're a free country, a capitalist country, where we produce a lot of things in a capitalist system, where our people are free to invent and create and spread wealth and create wealth. If your socialist paradise is so well, why would you need our money? It should be working so well where you wouldn't need any of our stuff, Castro. Oh, but no, he wants the U.S. to pay them millions of dollars. Castro spoke out in an essay published in local media a day before U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry makes a historic visit to Cuba. So that was today. President Barack Obama wants Congress to lift it. Of course he does. Castro wrote, Cuba is owed compensation equivalent to damages, which total many millions of dollars. As our country has stated with irrefutable arguments and data in all of its speeches at the United Nations. So we don't trade with you. We make a trade embargo with you because you're a communist socialist dictator who persecutes Christians and political dissidents, and that's our fault. We're the bad guys. I'd love to see what Obama said about this. This is what Obama said about this. Nothing. He said nothing about this. Amazing. So we open up relations. We're saying, oh, this is going to be great for us. It's going to be great for Cuba. We're becoming friends. And instead of Castro saying, oh, thank you, great Americans, he says, America, you owe us millions of dollars. So there's that. You all excited? 407-674-1025. I actually had a debate with Bud on the morning show not too long ago where he thought it was a good thing. He thought this would infuse money into there, which give them a taste of capitalism and eventually make them go from communist to capitalist. No, I don't think so. It's going to give them a bunch of money. It's going to pump up the regime. It's going to make their military stronger, practically, frankly. We trade with China. They're a communist country. A lot of people say, well, because we trade with China, we should trade with Cuba. How is that trade with China going? Is China a bastion of freedom? Is China a bastion of rights? By the way, they just devalued their currency this week, screwing up the markets. A lot of their people, they have a growing middle class, but a lot of their people are still poor. Political dissidents still have no voice in China. They have no women's rights. And they're going to have a serious problem in the next generation because there's going to be a lot more men than women because of their one-child policy. Anytime they would have a girl, they could only have one child, they would abort the girl and wait till they had a boy. So now you're going to have many more men than women in China. But China is a great example, right? About how we should open relations with all these countries. This one's in our hemisphere. This one's been an enemy. They've sided with our enemies, and here we are. And, of course, it's not good enough. Rubio is right. If we were going to do this, we should have at least made them change a little bit. Change some more capitalists. Give more rights to their people. That's not going to happen. That's not how Obama works because we're the bad guy. You notice that? How did this all of a sudden get switched by Castro? And I would not be surprised if Obama believed this. How did it all of a sudden get switched to us being the bad guy? They're the ones that persecute their people. They're the ones that they have no rights. They're a brutal dictatorship, and somehow we're the bad guy. So Obama opens up relations with them because we've wronged them all this time. No, they've wronged their own people all this time. 407-674-1025. You're listening to Beyond Reason Radio, News Radio 1025, WFLA, BeyondReasonRadio.com.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime.
So just another way to find Beyond Reason Radio, to find the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. You can find, like it said, on your Stitcher app. You can find it on your TuneIn Radio app. You can find it on your Spreaker app. You can find it on your iTunes app in the App Store there. And you can download it on iHeartRadio. Just search Beyond Reason Radio on your iHeartRadio app, and you can get the podcast there as well. Or the easiest way, just go to my website, BeyondReasonRadio.com. All of the podcasts are there, and you can also follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee, and like this show on Facebook. Just search Facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio, and I always post the links to the podcast on there as well. So we'd like to get a lot more likes on that page. And I'm just a young guy in radio. Not a rich bajillionaire like Donald Trump or anything. I don't have helicopters with my name on it. But if you like the show, I really depend on you to spread the word. Depend on the audience. And I get a lot of compliments on people that listen that really like the show. But I need you to spread the word. If you find the podcast on any of those things, share it with your friends. If you listen to the show live every Friday night, just tell your friends where to listen. You can just search News Radio 1025 on your iHeartRadio app and listen live. Or go to BeyondReasonRadio.com, and there's a streaming thing right there to listen live. So tons of ways to listen to the show. We're hoping the show will expand eventually and get more time. Just a bunch of great stuff. The millennial generation needs a voice. And I'm not saying, I'm this great voice, but I'm saying when you listen to talk radio, you listen to a lot of news talk radio, a lot of it's catered to the older generation. It's just the facts. And there's sort of a void for our generation. So this is the place where our generation can get together and talk about the issues. It's stupid that they assume the millennial generation does not care about these issues. It's stupid. So yep, there's that. I want to get into healthcare because last week I bashed Donald Trump because he said the Canadian healthcare system works. And I couldn't believe it. A single-payer healthcare system, someone said this. Now, since I'm a fair guy, I'm going to give Donald Trump the benefit of the doubt here. And he did say what he would do in terms of healthcare. And it's not a bad plan. It's hard for me to believe him or know what he would do, because he said single-payer healthcare is a good system in other places, and it would have worked here at one time. I don't know how a conservative could believe that. But this is what he said on Hannity this week, and I thought it was pretty interesting. We talk about it.
One of the first things I do if I get elected, end Obamacare and do something really good. Whether it's that, one of the things we have to do is we have to get rid of these artificial state lines that were put in only for the insurance companies. They make a fortune.
In other words, portability, buying across state lines.
Portability, but really, when I want to bid in New York, I have a lot of people in New York, but I have a lot of states where I have people, right? I can't go to other states and bid. I get like one bid. I get one bid. Now, the insurance companies do that because they'd rather have 100% of New York than be all over the country. Problem is, it's not free market. If you get rid of those artificial lines that wrap New York, New Jersey, I want to bid my insurance from California. I want to have 100 bids come in. And I want to pick the best company, not even the lowest price, the best company, the best plan. Right now, I have
every American would have that choice.
Everybody would have that choice.
So there we are. It's not a bad plan. Now, I'm not going to give him any great credit for this because this is not new. But he explains it well, that when you don't let them compete across state lines and you have a company that don't like Donald Trump's company and they want to bid for insurance, they don't have the chance to really bid many different companies. It gets rid of the competition, and competition is really what we need. This is why Obamacare, this is why single payer, this is why all that's a disaster. Because it takes away competition in healthcare. And that's the last thing we need to do. And I also found a piece here from Governor Scott Walker, who's also running for president, and he hits it right on the money. This makes me like Scott Walker a little more. He didn't have a very good debate performance, so he hasn't been really big in the news this week. But I thought I would read this because it's pretty well. It's pretty done well. He talks about the things wrong with Obamacare, and he talks about what we need to do to fix it. He says the primary reason Obamacare is such a disaster is because it's built on the flawed premise that Washington bureaucrats are in a better position than Americans to make decisions about their own health care. Obamacare took away people's ability to choose the health care plan that best fits their needs. It robs states of the ability to respond to and protect the needs of their consumers, and attacks and regulated innovation out of the healthcare industry. My plan to replace this flawed law will put patients and doctors back in charge of healthcare decisions as they should be, spurring innovation in the process. He's right on the money. He said fewer options, another problem with Obamacare. Fewer options. Under Obamacare, millions of Americans lost their health care coverage and are no longer able to see their preferred doctor or nurse. One analysis shows that there are 42% fewer oncologists and cardiologists and 32% fewer primary care doctors under Obamacare plans. This is the one that's very interesting to me, though. Higher coverage costs. Now, it's funny because Obamacare is titled the Affordable Care Act, yet the one thing that they should have been doing is they should have sat down and they should have said, how do we cut the cost of health care so people can afford it more? What can they do? And the government's really got to get out of the way. That's the point. It's mostly government interference that has caused the cost to go up. Like Trump was saying, you have to be able to bid across state lines. That's government regulation that prevents them from doing that. So what you have to do is cut the cost. That's what should be the goal. But that's not the goal of Obamacare. They focus more on coverage, not cost. You have to focus on cost. He said the Heritage Foundation has found that from 2014 to 2015, average premiums in Ohio increased by approximately 11%. In Louisiana, 17%. In Kansas, 14%. And it's going up, by the way. I talk to people all the time. As soon as Obamacare was passed, actually, my health care went up. Almost immediately. He talks about that the mandates against employers is hurting them, especially there's too many people in this country that want full-time work that are just working part-time. That is because of Obamacare. That's because of Obamacare. That's where it is. Unsustainable spending. This is not talked about enough with Obamacare, but it's a big problem. Every American should have access to their choice of affordable health insurance, but we can accomplish this without saddling taxpayers with a bill of nearly $2 trillion. That's right. That's how much Obamacare is going to cost. I thought the whole point of this was to cut costs. But it's not cutting costs of healthcare, and it's not cutting government spending. It's not solving any of the problems. Scott Walker makes a great point. He talks about fraud, waste, and abuse. There's a lot of fraud in government, and so we're going to have government more in charge. All you have to do is look at the VA. That's government healthcare. That's what that is. The Veterans Administration is the model of government healthcare, and I think most people can tell you that's a failed model. Why we want to expand that to everybody when we should probably privatize the VA more. Yes, make sure they get coverage because our vets deserve coverage, but we should probably privatize it more. We're wanting to expand it. So I played a cut from Donald Trump. I talked about Scott Walker's plan. He's right. And it's beyond reason that we're still under this government healthcare. I thank you all for listening. Make sure to go to iHeartRadio.com. You can search Beyond Reason Radio there. Catch the podcast there. If you missed any of the show, go to my website, BeyondReasonRadio.com. Also, follow me on Twitter at Michael Yaffee. Coming up next, I have the American Taxpayers Revolution show, which I produce, of course. Going to want to catch that out. And I will catch you for the next show, and then I will catch you next week.
Side of myself.